If you watch basketball, you know how dangerous the SEC is, Brendan. I was watching Florida at Georgia. Who saw that one coming? Jordan Davis Hill talked about it yesterday. Georgia desperate, trying to get in the tournament. That's the danger. We're going to talk about it today. At this time of the season, you get a team with 4 or 5 wins, and you are projected number one seed. They're coming after you. You got to be ready. Florida unable to handle the challenge, down by 26, came back, took a 1 point lead, still lost by 4 or 5 at the end. Gators still in good shape for a 1 or a 2 at the very worst right now. A lot happened. Alabama really took Mississippi State out by almost 40 last night. Missouri took care of South Carolina, and Tennessee got by LSU. Coach John Brady will join us. Oakley, the intern. Dudley Dawson, hogfield.net. And Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal in Knoxville will join us as well. Brendan, this is the best time of the year, but you better love pressure. And there's a lot happening. We keep hearing the talk about expansion of the playoff from 12 to 14 to 16, no automatic buys. Where are we going with this? Is the SEC and the Big Ten, are those two conferences, are they forming a cabal that is so strong they're going to box out, Brendan, the rest
Illuminati?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't like that.
I think that's all crazy. I think we're all getting into the conspiracy theory landscape of it, probably. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah,
all I know is that Florida lost to Georgia last night, and that is never fun. But I don't know. These games right now, it's just like you want to stay healthy.
Yeah. You do.
That's it. You just don't want to go and, you just want to stay healthy. You got to get to the tournament. It's all about doing the tournament. It's your seed. So I get it. I'm not going to cry too much about that. That's for sure.
It's a loss. The Gators are 11-4 in the league now, but you're jockeying for that number one seed. And they got Tennessee getting a lot of talk that they're a number one seed. They've lost 5 conference games. Look, this is a sausage grinder of a league, the SEC this year. But Brendan, it last year at the same time, there was all these expletives being thrown around. Greatest league ever, greatest conference, all that stuff. And with the exception of Alabama to the Final Four, Tennessee to the Elite Eight, the conference did not show up for the NCAA tournament last year. So if you are a fan of one of these teams like Auburn or Alabama or Florida, Tennessee, that a lot of people think are being, if that's going to, how much of an effect is that going to have on you? Hey, take a picture of this QR code. Sidelines is live streaming 7 channels, YouTube, X, and Facebook. Okay. I did have an update last night on my iPhone. I think a lot of people got updates last night. That might be,
for what?
On my phone.
I didn't get an update on my iPhone.
Yeah.
So
and they didn't tell me either. They just did it.
I think we'll have to take I will splash top in. Dudley Dawson is trying to join us from Pebble Beach or something, but hey, Dudley.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good, how are you, sir?
We are having a great time this morning.
Where are we teeing off right now?
It is Pebble Beach.
Yeah,
it's my understanding. I thought we'd bring snow last week, so we'd come with a little bit different background.
Yeah, last week was gorgeous. The background of Old Main on campus in the background. And the bottom line, Dudley, the Hogs last week, we were talking. I could see that one coming. They pushed Auburn to the limit. And then Saturday, 92-85 over Missouri. I was wondering if that wasn't Heber Springs up here or Lake Ouachita, Lake Ouachita. Lake Hamilton.
That was indeed a big win for them. Certainly earned them some resume building material for the NCAA tournament. But as the coaches always say, the next one's the biggest one. They've got Texas tonight here at 8:00. Another one of these late games, which I used to really enjoy, but I wish they'd be more like at 4:00 these days.
I don't like.
It's one of those situations. They win this one, they're going to continue to creep up the last 4 in to then the last 80 in, whatever. They're in a situation that they're playing, some of their best basketball right now at a time you have to because of the way you started.
Well, looking, and by the way, Brendan, his
Yeah.
internet. Are you on Chrome today?
Yes.
Wow. It's like you went from a 2-wheel drive to 4-wheel drive with all-terrain tires.
It's so fun watching Rob have these epiphanies that are like,
But
I
Brendan
literally
tells me
shouldn't
these
be
things.
epiphanies. They just,
You got to listen to him.
Rob's like, whoa, my phone. It texted you. It was amazing.
I think I know a lot about sports, but I don't know a lot about technology. So I'm
This looked awesome.
open to stuff,
Yeah,
This is awesome. But by the way, you watched last night basketball. A lot of basketball. We were talking about Florida losing at Georgia. Florida's down by 26, and they come back and take a 1-point lead, lose in the finish. That's a tough ass team, and look, it's a road loss against your hated rival. But at the worst, Florida would slip if they keep losing to a 2. But if they keep winning, I think they're still a 1, don't you?
They're pretty close. And it depends on obviously what some of the other teams do down the stretch. I don't know that everybody else they're competing with for that has as tough a row as they have playing in the SEC. But I do think that they are a team that definitely, is a legitimate contender for the national title. Wouldn't have said that at the start of the year. And this was without the 7'9" guy who's redshirting, So he's going to be fun to watch next year, these next couple of years, as he continues to develop into his body, as I do at 61.
Yeah, I'm working into mine. 51 yesterday.
I know, big birthday boy.
There you go.
51
Happy
yesterday.
birthday.
Thank you.
Hey, looking around right now, the Hogs, what's happening with this team? They look, when they went on the road and won at Kentucky and won at Texas, I think that was proof that they can play with anybody. They were last week against number 1 Auburn on the road. I mean, Auburn had to work the full 40, and they've done it against Alabama. They're a team that they don't even really know each other. Maybe they do now, but was that a problem early in the season?
There's a couple of things I'm going to point to, and number one is I have never seen a team miss so many dunks and layups early in the season, and in those games that they lost by a few points, that became something that you could point to right away. They are making their shots now, and it's not necessarily three-pointers, just the ones that they weren't making near the rim. And, that was unreal. And so they're getting that done now. Also, they're playing great defense, playing with intensity, and playing with some urgency because they fell into a hole that was hard to dig out of. And they finally, I believe, realized that we got to do this way. And he has Coach Cal's done I think an amazing coaching job in whipping this around after Boogie Flan went out with the season for injury. Tonight, they're going to be missing a dude. So it's one of those things that they'll just have to keep shortening the rotation, not by choice, but being able to get more out of less, if that's what we're doing here.
Great coaches get teams playing at the right times, man. And that is never more true than in men's college basketball when you're coming up to the dance. I always say I don't start paying attention till January because it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because the great ones get you good playing great because we talk about all these great teams, and then it comes down this time of year, we're talking about the same teams. We get to the Final Four, we're talking about the same teams.
Well,
what a league this year that has gotten all of these teams ready for getting in the NCAA tournament.
I know.
I mean, I watched St. John's and UConn last Sunday, and you're looking at Danny Hurley, you're looking at Rick Pitino.
One of them's calm, one of them's not.
Yeah, and you don't want to play either one of them in the tournament because they could be you don't want to be in there with them they're going to be pretty high seed. UConn might be an 8 or a 9. You still don't want to play them because they're like a shark, a little drop of blood. They know what a national championship tastes like. They're in the guard play of those teams. What other conference would you compare the SEC this year to nationally or in years past? I've got
Well,
one
I
that
think
comes to
that you
mind.
can point to the Big 12. The Big 12 has really been good from top to bottom. Obviously, they didn't have 16, back then,
Yeah.
but it is a legitimate. I mean, South Carolina, Arkansas goes to South Carolina. That's going to be a huge game for them. What's South Carolina 1-14 now? Something like that. I know
1-13, 1-14. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about a place you've got to win. That would be a bad loss. You got to keep it going. But I would say the Big 12 and maybe the ACC back in the day. But the ACC, I think, was top heavy, not top to bottom, as this year's SEC, as the Big 12 has been in the past. It's just a quality conference that I think that somewhere along the way, the SEC athletic directors, hey, well, we put some money in this round ball stuff.
Well, and it's been an investment. Mike Slive back in 2014 talked to the conference at the tournament, the coaches, and said, either we get our act together. I don't know if the SEC network will take off. And that was, I think, a big catalyst to that happening.
And they started scheduling better in non-conference as well.
Yeah. Versus those Reno wins. Give me your thoughts on Arkansas, the last games on their schedule. What do you think is going to happen? You know this team, but you're also objective, true grit journalist, and you'll tell it like you see it.
There's not a game left on the schedule that they can't win. And I don't know how, I think with about 10 games left, me and a couple other guys were sitting around saying, I might win 3. Three's probably not going to do it. And then all the experts started talking about if they can just get to 7, in this league, even though Dick Vitale, and I certainly glad he's back on the scene. He made a good point the other day. We've gotten to a point now, there's so many teams in so many conferences that 7-11 might get you in. It used to be you had to be 500, in whatever sport to enter a tournament unless you won the conference tournament at the end of the year. Do they deserve to be in the tournament if they get to 7 and 8 wins? It looks like it to me from these so-called experts. But I do agree with Coach Vitale, that it's one of those things. You just 500 seems to be what should be the automatic qualifier, but it's not. But to fully answer your question, there's not a game on the schedule they can't win now with the way they're playing and the way the Bud Walton Arena was rocking against Missouri. Anything left here at home, they have to be favored.
Yeah, if you've played Arkansas, I thought the same thing last night. You're lucky because them and John Calipari. Look at his record. He and Rick Barnes, two winningest active coaches in America. They're going to be a problem. All right, our intern Oakley McFerrin had an update last night on his computer, but we got to get him into Chrome. But he's working on that. But he texted me one of his homework assignments for this week was his top 5 big men in the SEC. The first one on the list was some guy, Janai Broome at Auburn. Second,
I like that guy, and he introduced himself to Morgan Freeman here recently.
He did, and Morgan's usually in Clarksdale, Mississippi, at Ground Zero down in the Delta. He's one of the greatest actors I've ever seen. That guy I think he's from
Charleston. God, man.
Yeah, Charleston, Mississippi. I mean, he's just got the voice. He's around Memphis a lot. I've just never seen him. I'd love to have him and talk to him. Colin Murray Boyles, back to the basket. Big will punish you in the post. This is your Oakley McFerrin, the intern's comments. I love it. Number 3, Alex Condon. Great rebounder, will continue to develop from the 3-point line. Okay. Asa Newell, versatile big, whose best athlete on the court, needs to find consistency from the 3-point line, will be a lottery pick in June. And then Amari Williams, lob threat, shot blocker, good rebounder.
Been very impressed. Been very, very impressed with Williams. I mean, his motor goes all the time.
Yeah.
As does that whole Texas A&M's team. Although they're slipping a little bit here.
Yeah, and that's a question I was going to ask you. I think Buzz Williams is the best coach in America, pound for pound, getting what he gets out of. It's not they don't have resources, but they don't have a bunch of 4 and 5 stars. Yeah, but you don't want to play them. Who was it? on the show, one of our guests this week, I think a lot of them talk about it's a rock fight. A&M goes to the O-Dome. Yeah, Franz talked about that. Franz Beard. And that's going to be at the O-Dome Saturday, I expect Florida to come out with their hair on fire.
Yeah, and I think Florida has some physicality that can match Texas A&M, but Texas A&M doesn't matter to them whether they make the shot or not. They're going to go get it if they don't make it. And Wade Taylor and those guys, they have some great players, but they also have role guys, and not a lot of these teams these days in the in the landscape of free agency that we have in college basketball now fit in glue guys. And he seems to have found some great ones that really make plays, have special abilities, whether it be just a 3-point shooter or some guy that just cannot let anybody else have a rebound. Tough guys. And when you play Texas A&M, what you really want is your bye to be the next game.
Yeah, because it's like a football game with them. They are fun to watch. All right. So another one of Oakley's assignments, and he'll be back with us next week, was teams trending to make the tournament, okay? So Georgia, he puts them on there, just got a statement win with a favorable final 3 games, all right? I'd say Georgia. Would you agree with that, gentlemen?
Absolutely. After last night, I think they were, obviously – going the other way before last night, but that gave them a big win. There are these teams down here at the bottom that's going to get the 11th, 12th, and 13th. They've all beaten each other too, and it's going to be your quad 1 wins and all that. And obviously, that was a big one for Georgia to get last night. Big one for Arkansas to get against Missouri, and then you can virtually eliminate Texas tonight. And this might as well be a play-in game. Between Arkansas and Texas.
Yeah, that is. I will definitely be watching that as long as the neighbors have the blinds pulled up. Cable's so damn expensive. I had a teacher, Noel Carey, used to tell us that in business law at Christian Brothers. He'd say, you guys, I'm a teacher here at Christian Brothers High School. We don't make a lot of money, so if the neighbors don't have the blinds pulled up, I can't watch the game. But all right, another team, Oakley McFerrin, the intern, North Carolina, easy couple of games leading up to the home matchup with Duke that will determine if they make March. Is there a logo love affair with a team like North Carolina that if they're on the edge, it's a slam dunk that they're in? Because they're going to draw eyeballs.
Absolutely. And I would say it shouldn't be, but absolutely it's going to. Whether it's the college football playoff, basketball, baseball there, when they're Monday, when they came out, you could tell me you get all these metrics, but you also see Carolina blue. You also see, Alabama, most of the time, I should say. But I think that the people on the committee who would say they don't do that are just lying to you.
Yeah, they are.
Everybody leaves the room.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that one. We all left the room. Yeah, right. All right, because you think about Boise State, big-time home matchup versus Utah State. That is a must-win to make a push for the tournament. Favorable schedule outside of that game. Out in Utah. And by the way, I was picking up some crumble cookies for some clients, 2 boxes of them the other day. I knew it was from Utah. Apparently, it's from out there in Logan, where Utah State University is, because that's the original crumble cookie shop. Yeah, the Aggie. I love it. The U of U, or Utah State University.
College Station?
No, it's in Logan, Utah. That's where our friend John Hartwell lived for 7.5 years out there, and he said the winters were just nothing short of a Siberian winter.
In Utah? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Because,
Rocky
Brendan,
Mountains, baby.
Hey, yeah.
The other side, they get the snow first.
Yeah, Brendan, we were talking about you last night, some people and I, and I said, well, we were watching, something came up about golf. And I said, Brendan, the birthday boy, I told him this, I said, was a caddy at Castle Pines for 15 years.
Really?
And one of my buddies said, he goes, I've played that course. He goes, God dang, that's an awesome, that would have been, Brendan, how cool was that? And who all did you meet out there? I bet that was
It wasn't
awesome.
that cool, Rob. It was a hard job.
Yeah, I know it is.
It wasn't cool at all.
Yeah,
I think wearing a white jumpsuit, master style, every
Yeah.
day in the summer,
Yeah.
and you wore them because
Dude.
and you wore them because you were running around,
Yeah.
like what you see behind you, right? Behind Dudley right here is the berms that they are not berms, it's the ditches, and they're water ditches for the flash floods. There's rattlesnakes all up in there, boy. So you go looking for golf balls, and it's quite a deal. We did a unique style caddying, which was not unique; it's old school. We caddied for the foursome because the mile or the terrain, so the topography, it's so up and down everywhere that you can't carry. I mean, you can carry, but you can't like double bag it. Like I have, but you just don't want to do it. It's brutal because it's incline decline. So you would jump on the back of a golf cart and you'd run, or you'd sprint ahead of the hole of the tee box and you'd watch them hit balls at you, and then you'd go find all the balls, give yardage and distance, and then fix divots and all that stuff. And this is pre-rangefinder days, boys.
Yeah, I was going to ask
you. I didn't run around
for a rattlesnake. What's the best iron for a rattlesnake? Probably a 7.
No. You got to, because it's not heavy enough. You got to get some weight. If you got a 3-iron in there, you go ahead and take your 3-iron, and it's longer, so you can, you know what I mean. You get a little more shake the bushes kind of thing. But listen. I did, and I may or may not have made a whole lot of money there that I'll never talk about. That's what I'll know.
Well,
I can tell you, every shot that I made would have been right over here in that. It would have. When I hit the green, it would have been over there.
Right in the gully. Does you think this guy knows anything about playing golf? We got
Coach John Brady.
John Brady joining us. How are you, Coach?
Coach is
Coach.
He's frozen.
He's frozen in time.
Well, let me say this. You think about hitting a rattlesnake. I bought a pair of these. I got them from Hewlett and Danner snake boots that are up to your knees almost. There's a reptile at the Memphis Zoo, my favorite, the Gaboon viper. His head is the size of a softball with 2-inch fangs, and it looks just like a rattlesnake, lays in the leaves. You would have to have about 3 golf clubs to have a chance against that dude. But I don't think I'd want to encounter him. But
I'll take your word on that from afar.
Like rattlesnakes or not, who rattlesnakes will kind of leave you alone. They're like alligators, they're a lot more scarier than they look. I think Coach is back here. We'll bring him in. But there you go. How you doing, Coach?
Good morning.
But don't give me a coral snake, because those things are just straight from Satan himself. That's
I agree with that. We were talking about his days of being a caddy at Castle Pines out in Colorado. We got Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, Coach John Brady, and Vince Ferrara is going to join us in a minute. Coach normally comes on about 8 wild day, and we switched to 8:30 this week, so we're going to have a cool, lively discussion about college basketball. And Coach, last night, Tennessee and LSU, let's talk about that game and then kind of expand on the rest of the SEC.
Well, Tennessee is, I think the best defensive team, one of the best in the country. They're the best in the SEC in terms of field goal percentage defense. And, they held us to a cool 59 last night. So, they were we defend well, we switch, we cross team some problems on the defensive end. We did it to Florida. We just don't have the firepower to sustain, consistent scoring enough to beat somebody of quality. And that's kind of where we are. And it was evident last night. It's a close game at the half, and they come out the second half and they go up 12 or 14, and we cut it at the end a little bit. But we just don't have the personnel from an offensive standpoint to, sustain enough scoring to beat teams that are really good, like Tennessee and Florida.
Coach, Oakley, the intern, had some technical issues, had an update on his computer, so he can't join us, but he put out 2 lists, and I want to get your thoughts because I brought it up with Dudley and Brendan. Top 5 players, big guys, big men in the SEC. And the old concept of playing with your back to the basket isn't like it used to be. But number 1, he's got Janai Broome. Number 2, Colin Murray Boyles at South Carolina. Number 3, Alex Condon Florida, 4, Asa Newell, Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and 5, Amari Williams at Texas A&M. And I don't know if you know Buzz Williams, but that's a guy that I'd love to talk to and actually just listen and take notes. I think he was a lot like you. He's very intense, and he's going to get 50 pounds out of a 10-pound sack more often than not, as they say in the country. That's a Chuck Oliver term. That's not my term.
Yeah, I like Buzz. I think Buzz is one of the most underrated coaches in the
Yeah.
league. I really do. I think uh, year in year out, he does a really nice job of getting the best out of his players. They have one really good player. They don't shoot it well, but I've always judged a coach by how hard his team plays and the effort that they give. And certainly Buzz is one of the best at getting the best effort out of his players. I'm not sure if they have a legitimate professional on that team. They may have the guard that's close, but certainly the rest of the players, I don't think they're going to be making a lot of money on TV a year from now or so. And I think I think his team overachieves because it plays with a great amount of effort. They put emphasis on defending. They put emphasis on rebounding. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the country, or one of the top 3 or 4. And I think he's an underrated coach in the league. I really do.
I'm just a huge fan of his. Dudley, what do you think about it?
Yeah, as we were talking about earlier, I think he does a really good job in this landscape of college basketball that we have now of somehow getting glue guys or getting them into a role that helps a team win. Sometimes you have too many Chiefs, not enough Indians, and I think he's done a really good job in the last few years, even going through free agency, is might as well be called here, in finding the right guys to play his style of play.
Yeah, and Coach, and Vince is going to join us, and he's part of the Vol Network. He was excited to be on here with you to talk about that game. LSU did announce that big commitment for basketball, and there's a lot of talent. You spend a lot of time recruiting. It's a lot of fun. It can be, and you build relationships and all. LSU is one of those places, in my opinion, that you can be great in everything. But basketball, what is different about LSU basketball than say LSU baseball and football and gymnastics and softball and everything else, track and field, you name it. They're great in it.
I don't know if there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of discussion about the amount of our NIL money that wasn't as good as the other teams, and I don't know the figures. I know LSU's NIL money, the neighborhood of it this year, and it was low in terms of what I hear. Now I don't know for sure. But I think they're going to increase that. The revenue sharing is going to come about, and everybody's going to split about 20 or 22 million and pay players. And then I guess the athletic director decides how that money is split up. I'm sure football will get the majority of it, and then men's basketball, and then on down the line. So our revenue in terms of paying players, which is really difficult for me to say, and I guess the old adage is the more you have, the more you pay, the better your team is. Is that what we're into now? Like the New York Yankees, we just go buy a team and hope it works out. I hate to fall into that narrative and use it as an excuse for losing.
Yeah.
The coach says, "Well, I don't have enough money. I don't have money like Auburn or whoever the team is, so I can't win." And I hate for that to be an excuse for coaches not to win because I don't have the money the other 2 or 3 teams have. So I think that's not good to fall behind that. But certainly it is a factor in the recruiting process, and so we'll see. I think if we split monies and they still keep the collective on the side to give more in case you need it, LSU's still going to be behind the 8 ball a little bit. I mean, if we're going to get 4.2 million next year to give away to players, and they keep the collective, our collective is not as good as some other schools, so we'll still be behind the teams that are also splitting the 20 million and still be behind the 8 ball a couple of $1 million. So I, I, I think players ought to be compensated for what they earn in their
Yeah.
NIL, for what they establish. Uh, I don't like paying somebody a lot of money on the
Yeah.
front end when they hadn't made a basket. I think that's the wrong
Well,
principle.
since I graduated from college, my first 2 years as a TV reporter, I made kind of like what you talked about as a coach. Your first 3 years, you told me one time you made 15,000 a year. I made less than that as a TV reporter for 2 years.
Yeah,
And now look, now
that's
completely
right.
different world. But if you were to take Dudley and Coach and Brendan and everybody watching this show, if you were to take money out on the sales floor in a securities firm, stocks and bonds trading out on that floor, and pay people up front based on how they dressed or who they knew, that's always the big one. Uh, that would be a disaster. I've seen this happen in the business world before where you paid kids right out of college a lot of money and it was an abject failure. The intent might have been good, but you got to make people hungry. I'll use a broader example. I'll throw it out, and I want to get y'all's response. Of the four branches of the armed services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, which one is the least funded? Marine Corps. Which one has the most pride of any fighting unit on the planet? The Marine Corps. I mean, and I think it's culture. There's a T-shirt they have. There's two of them. Pain is weakness leaving the body, and pain is temporary. Pride is forever. I just think you got to build a culture, Dudley. I mean, like what Coach is saying, it sounds strange to say you're paying people before they've done a damn thing. I mean, I've never got my allowance as a kid till I did the chores.
Absolutely. I grew up on a farm. There was no such thing as a advance.
Yeah.
You got it Friday once you got done, or Saturday once you got done. You know what I wish we could have done here, and it's not going to happen because that's just not the way things work in the world. Is if you got 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists per game or 5 blocks per game, here's a whole bunch of money.
Yeah.
If you could do it incentive based, then that would have been fun, I think, and I think you would have kids playing harder. But the way it is these days, you got to do it up front. And as you said, if you give them the money up front and they know they're going to get it, then they still will have pride and they still will play hard. I just think incentive based, whether it's for a sports writer, a business guy, or an athlete, would all come into play. If I had to do 14 stories this week to get this amount of money, I'd do 14 stories this week. They may not be quality stories, but I'd do 14.
Yeah. I mean, that's wow. Coach, respond to that. We're going to bring in Vince Ferrara from Knoxville, but kind of off of what Dudley just said. I agree.
Well, this is an older interview, and I don't know if you guys may have seen it. Oprah Winfrey's interviewing Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, and Jordan addresses that young players today. He said, when Bird, Magic, Barkley, and I came along, corporations came to us because we established ourselves and earned the right for them to represent us. He said, now young players get paid a lot of money and they hadn't done anything to earn what they're getting. And Oprah said, was something wrong with that? He said, yeah, I don't think it makes them work as hard as they need to work to get to that position. And there's something to that.
Yeah.
Jordan, and those guys earned it because of what they did. And that's the thing about the NIL. And I don't think it was ever intended to pay players up front. I think it was intended for a star quarterback or the best basketball player, whatever the case may be. Once he established himself as a legitimate player, he was able to get money off selling of shirts or going to speak or whatever the case may be to earn some money while he was playing. This pay for play and all transactional situations now. I don't think it's good for the game, and I don't think it's good for the individual in terms of building a character that's going to last him the rest of his life. I think we're shortchanging, and I think down the road it's going to show up somewhere.
We're going to start letting people who have the intent of being a doctor, their third year in college and undergrad. Well, you're going to medical school. Well, you know what neurosurgeons make? We're going to pay you neurosurgeon. Yeah. I mean, any doctor that I know didn't even make money until if they're an orthopedic surgeon, a heart surgeon, neuro, until their mid-30s. They never made more than 45 or 50,000 because they were a resident, a fellow, you name it. I mean, we're going to get back. Y'all both knocked it out of the park. Vince Ferrara, I saw that we're talking a lot of basketball right now, but you got some news about a home and home series with the Big Orange that is newsworthy. So say hello to Coach John Brady and Dudley Dawson and Brendan Martin.
Yeah.
All right.
Guys, great to talk to you again. Appreciate you. Coach, I know you were on the call last night.
Right.
So looking forward to talking Tennessee LSU hoops with you. Just this week, Tennessee had Nebraska back out of a non-conference football home and home series in 2026 and 2027 with Tennessee. And that's 19 months before it happens. And so it's pretty late notice. As you guys know, those schedules are done way in advance for football. So, Danny White was not happy that Nebraska backed out because the SEC is required to have one Power 4 non-conference game. And Danny White was on our show this morning. He comes on with us every other week. And he said right now, in the dates that they now have open with that series being vacated, he said that there's not one single Power 4 school available for a home and home.
Wow.
So what do you do? Now that Patrick Brown from Go Vols 24/7, want to give him a nod because he did a great layout on their website. All right, here are the teams that have an opening in both years. Here in the Power 4, here are the teams that have an opening in just 2026. Here are the ones in 2027. You go a lot of different ways. You can do individual neutral site games. You could try a home and home, but they have to match the dates that you have open unless you start buying out of other games or moving other games with, your group of fives to free up a date that somebody else has available. It can get really messy,
Mm-hmm.
And then some are not ideal, like Washington. They have Washington coming up. They play Syracuse this year. So there's just so many things, but nobody has openings in their date. So he even mentioned that if they don't do neutral site, which is not what he wants to do, they might have to go to the SEC and ask for an exemption because Nebraska backed out. They say it's because they're renovating their stadium and they can't generate enough revenue. And so they needed another home date or something like that, which to me, you suck it up. They're not the only ones doing renovations. But so anyway, it's an extra mess that now Tennessee's having to deal with on top of the big picture things in the sport and everything else going on.
I agree with him. Matt Rule said he wanted to cancel the spring football game this year because he didn't want to showcase his players. Maybe he didn't want to show his team getting their ass kicked by Tennessee. So that's just going to say that. Little SEC love here.
Yeah, well,
maybe you can schedule Vanderbilt
but
twice.
Rob, if that happens,
What?
Maybe they could schedule Vanderbilt twice.
Yeah. There you go.
Hey, Dudley, you would appreciate this. If you lose and you get your butt kicked by Tennessee, hey, at least no one's going to come in the portal and take all your players, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
And Michigan did the same thing with Arkansas a few years ago, and they were able to get Notre Dame to fill in that. So it worked out well for Arkansas, and looking forward to seeing them here this year, although it might be not too close of a game, depending on how things, sit out there. But yeah, that's, once that's there should be some type of time limits you can't pull out. They're late or you have to pay a big fine or something. But,
Speaking of drives, I want to say this before, and I'm going to get Coach on this. LandersFordMemphis.com. They're at Poplar and Houston Levy. Massive dealership. They have a huge lot. Great service department. They'll pick you up, provide round trip transportation, pick you up at your house, at your office, so you don't have to hitch a ride from a friend. and go through all that nightmare. Brad Bellamy, the general manager, Audrey and I stopped by and visited with him, took him some crumble cookies last Friday. Look at all the opportunities to save big. They got the Broncos, the F-150, which is what I drive, four-wheel drive with the all-terrain tires. And they've got those F-150 Lightnings. They're big breaks on the prices, okay? They are open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Their name is all over the Mid-South. CBHS, it's now Tom Nix Stadium, Landers Field. It is a big commitment that they have made in the Mid-South. They will deliver anywhere. Great people to work with. When you go to that dealership, you'll walk in. It is the cleanest car dealership I have ever seen in my life. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, they say it, and they're right. You probably paid too much. Coach, listening to what these two guys said, and Brendan was saying earlier, and what you're saying, we're at a point now, that Oprah interview, I'm going to go look that up today because that's the truest thing. I don't know how much Michael Jordan made in his whole career, but y'all, last year Coach was on the show one time, and he made something that it really hits with me. And Dudley, remember last year Arkansas had several guys that were, quote, lottery picks, and Coach said, I've coached a lottery pick or two in my day. They don't put up 6 and 3. They're 20 and 12 most nights out on the court. Coach, if you were given a speech today to any of these SEC basketball teams, and they better listen and take notes,
Right.
what would your message be about the environment we're playing in?
I think you still got to coach him. I think any coach that's afraid to coach his team that fits his own personality is making a serious mistake. I think I don't I just think some coaches coach on their heels and because of the money they're exchanging. In today's world, I wouldn't care if the whole team quit. Just go out and get somebody else. I mean, I don't think transferring today is like it was. I used to think coaches were bad guys because players were transferring. I remember that conversation that they called all the coaches into Indianapolis before one recruiting summer period and chastised us because we were running players off.
Wow.
Now that's the thing you do is just kick a guy off because, whatever the reason. But I still think if I were coaching today, I think I would spend a lot more time with the players individually in the office and bring them along and tell them where they are and where they fit, what they need to do to get better, relieve some of their anxiety. I think that money creates and expectations create. And I think the more the head coach can relieve the anxiety within the player, the better off the relationship will be. And I still think you can coach them and challenge them. Not get as personal, maybe, as some mistakes that I probably made with some guys from time to time, but still coach them hard, hold them accountable, but spend more time with them individually, letting them know where they are and what they need to do every single day to keep improving and getting better. Because, at the end of the coach, if a player wants to leave your program, that head coach can call the other head coach and tell him the truth about what he really is about. Uh, and so if a young player thinks that coaches don't communicate with one another about those type of things, I think they're kidding themselves. So I think you can still hold them to a standard. You can still coach them hard, but you have to coach them in the right way. And I think time spent individually with each player is really critical to relieve anxiety, because I don't think you can perform if you're carrying a lot of anxiety with you. And I think college basketball today, with expectation level, all these people telling them how good they are, they're one and done, they're 5-star, whatever all that means. I think it creates a situation within the player that's not healthy to his development. And I think the more a coach can alleviate that with their relationship, the better off that will be.
That is a great speech. I totally agree with what you said. Vince, Dudley, whoever wants to respond to that.
I think he's so right. One of the things that, I was fortunate to be on the bench with Coach Eddie Sutton and Coach Nolan Richardson. They did things, different ways. but had the opportunity to watch the guys they recruited. Certainly talent was the number one thing, but number two was an inner drive that those kids had. And, I look back not to Kobe Bryant's great way he played basketball, but the thing that impressed me most about him, after he retired, the Lakers lost 8 games in a row one time. Then they won a game and they celebrated. And Kobe Bryant went on Jimmy Kimmel and they showed him that, and he just shook his head about there's no way you should be celebrating, ending an 8-game losing streak by partying. Just, congratulate yourself and get off the court. That is so important these days. Even with all the money that's out there, you've got to go find the guys that refuse to lose.
Yeah. Vince, last night, I know you want to talk with Coach about the Tennessee LSU game. Let's get your thoughts on that, because what those two have just said is accurate and true words of wisdom as you're going to get anywhere.
Yeah, and real quick on that subject, another aspect of what Coach and Dudley were talking about is it's never ending in terms of the portal and the potential. Tennessee yesterday was on 3 had a report that one of Tennessee's starting corners, Ricky Gibson III, is planning to hit the portal. Well, the portal didn't open until after spring practice. Why are you telling people and announcing that you're going to go to the portal before spring practice? He's got a great relationship with their other starting quarter, Jermon McCoy, who's out. Gibson only has 1 year as a starter, so he can get better in spring practice. So if that's true, you're just going to skip spring practice to go in the portal afterwards, or you're going to stay there knowing you're going to go in the portal. It doesn't make any sense. To me, it looks like a leverage for NIL money.
He's concentrating on his academics.
Now we have – yeah. Right. So now I don't know that that's the case for him, but it has that appearance because it's happened before of, hey, I'm going to tell people I'm going to go in the portal, see if they'll come back and give me some more money, give me my value that I could get in the open market, and then I'll end up staying because I don't have to officially hit the portal till afterwards. So those outside influences, like Coach is saying, you want the guys that have that inner drive. It's so hard to manage with agents and hangers-on and all that with their influence in the ear of these kids. And kids, knowing that, hey, I have the leverage here, so I'm going to take advantage of it. And maybe it doesn't end up going anywhere, but just not a great – it makes no sense if it happens.
Well, Vince, and speaking of that, Coach was talking about LSU's program, NIL, and what they're trying to do. And then we had the basketball game last night. And that's the real thing. And I'm jokingly saying we're a sanctuary show. We're trying not to talk about NIL in the portal, but you can't help it. I mean, it's like, going outside when it's 100 degrees and never saying, damn, it's hot. You can't help it. But let's get your thoughts on that game. And we'll go back and forth with this because this is a great basketball season. And I hope people are appreciating it. Only thing I can think of it's close to is the 2011 Big East year when they had 11 teams make the tournament. But now watching Rick Pitino and Danny Hurley Sunday at the Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's if I was a coach, and like Coach Brady is the same way. That's who you'd want coaching your son. I mean, you don't want some candy ass out there because they're not going to teach him anything. They're not.
Well, as far as last night's game, I appreciate I think that LSU plays hard. They're obviously, undermanned, had injuries and, the roster turnover, all those kind of things. So, but they play hard and they had Tennessee's respect, even though Tennessee didn't play great. They didn't start out great and they didn't close great, but they can defend and they have kept the most teams under 60 points this year of anyone in the SEC. So, that helped them through it, and they were dominant on the glass. And Felix Okpar didn't miss a shot, so he was really good. It wasn't a great performance for Tennessee, but they got the job done. And in the end, like a landmine, you just got to avoid losing that kind of game because it sits between a top 10 road win they had at A&M, and then you get number 6 Alabama coming to your place, when you're both trying to fight for a number, a 1 seed. So and they're a hated rival as well. So you avoid a letdown there, and LSU put a scare in them, and so just Tennessee did enough to get to the finish line. That was the biggest thing for me for Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I agree. After when that game was about 5 or 6 minutes old, I told Chris Blair, the guy I work with, I said, Tennessee, they don't have their best stuff tonight. I said, Coach Barnes is going to coach them hard because he's trying just to get out of here with a win. Because of, like you said, where it was falling for Tennessee in their schedule, what they just did, what they've got coming up. It was a game that they could stump their toe in, and he coached them hard the second half. Now he got into a couple of those guys pretty good, but he was just trying to get his team to get to the finish line and get out of there with a win. I agree with you totally on that, and Lanier and Ziegler the second half made some big baskets for them to separate the score, and our team's not equipped to come from 12 or 14 down. And once it got to that point, it was just a matter of Tennessee getting to the end. And so I agree with you. Tennessee didn't play their best. LSU gave them some problems by switching and playing hard and guarding really well, but we just don't have the firepower to sustain any kind of quality offense for 40 minutes, and that's been our problem most of the year.
Yeah. Dudley, looking at that, and then you like tonight, and I think y'all will be, Texas plays at Arkansas, and Arkansas is going to come out. It's not that, Rodney Terry's not going to have his team ready, but Arkansas is going to come out in the crowd at Bud Walton Arena, 19,000. It ought to be a crazy environment and atmosphere. What does Cal need to tell this team that maybe he hadn't already told them?
I don't know. Whatever he told them Saturday, would be the right thing to say. I'm sure the atmosphere will still be good, but Wednesday night at 8:00 is not conducive for a tremendous crowd like it was on Saturday. I do think that the same things. You are in the tournament if you keep winning. You're out if you don't. It's that simple. You put yourself in such a deep hole with that 1-5, 1-6 start that you've had to fight uphill all this time. You got to continue to win, and everybody around you. Georgia's win last night. Vanderbilt continues to win. There's so many. Oklahoma winning the other day. There's so many teams that are right there with you, and you beat up each other early in the season. And it's going to come down to quad 1 wins and really just momentum. And, as you were talking about earlier, if you're not North Carolina, if you don't have that on your front of your jersey, you're going to have to earn your way in. And so he just needs to tell them to keep doing whatever they've been doing and do it the way they have been. And I think the biggest thing is urgency. When you're not going to get to skip school and go to the tournament, suddenly you play harder, it seems.
Yeah. Vince, Tennessee all year long is just you can't shake them. And I'm looking at what Coach said about Rick Barnes, the native out of Hickory, North Carolina, coaching the hell out of them, getting on to them, and reminding them of what they're there for. You got Alabama coming in this week. Is Tennessee, I don't think, and y'all agree or disagree, they don't want to get in a track meet with Alabama. They want to keep that score, in the 60s, if that's possible, or what?
No, I don't think they're that limited offensively. I don't think they've been able to win some of those close games, those low-scoring games, because they defend so well. They're number one in a lot of categories. But their intention is to score. And when they're making baskets, they can get into the 80s. But it's just Alabama has that explosiveness to get into triple digits. So when they're just, shooting lights out. But Alabama hasn't always been that way. They've had those kind of games, but, against Auburn and a couple other times that, some teams can get to them when they turn Alabama over. And then you start to, force them to take bad shots and maybe deeper into the shot clock than you like, because they like to get those shots out quick. Coach sure knows that. Tennessee isn't going to be afraid to try to get out in transition, but yeah, they're going to pick their spots. But if they're hitting their shots, then yeah, the game can get into the 80s and Tennessee can win. It's just if you're not defending the three and you're not keeping them from driving and kicking like Mississippi State could not do last night at all, then you're playing catch up, and then it's tough to keep up with them in that circumstance.
Yeah.
Speaking of kicking, Chaz Lanier was just kicking the ball in the other day. I mean, well, that guy could shoot.
Yeah, and such a quick release too.
Yeah. Coach, Alabama likes every 10 seconds after a change, to get a shot off. Last week, I put Mark Sears in my top 5 list, and you said, hey, he's a hell of a shooter and all like that, but you'd like to see him do more. And I understand that. And I'm paying attention. Everything you say, I'm taking notes. I watch these shows. I break them down. I take notes. All right. Grant Nelson, the big guy from North Dakota. How do you rate him? I didn't see him on Oakley, the intern, our good friend. He didn't have him on his top 5 big men, but I think he's a pretty damn good player. Other than Sears being hot as fire, who has to have a big night for Alabama to win at Thompson-Boling?
Well, my theory on Alabama is this: where I don't give them all the credit as much as I give Auburn. I don't think Alabama defends as well during the course of a game that Auburn can do. Auburn can apply more pressure. Auburn likes to shoot it too. But my theory on Alabama is I would never help off any of those guys. I'd make Alabama beat me with twos, mid-range shots or whatever. If they want to drive me to the goal, I'll take my chances on a drive to the basket. But I'm not helping and getting and kicking out and shooting in rhythm threes. No, I wouldn't do it. I'd skin them up in the perimeter, guard dribble penetration without fouling the best I can. If they beat me with 32s or 35 twos, so be it. But I'm not going to let them get 12 to 15 threes on me because I think that gets them going a little bit, when that kind of offense is rolling for them. So, and I don't think the three-point shot travels as well at home as it does on the road. So I think when they roll into Thompson-Boling, that place is going to be something else. And if they go in there and make 12 or 15 threes, you got to give them credit. But my emphasis would be guard the dribble drive without fouling, make them shoot balls over you around the rim, but don't let them shoot 25 threes and make 12 or you're in real trouble.
Yeah. Guys, we got a few more minutes before we wrap it up. And I want to say something about Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. I stopped by there yesterday. Took them some barbecue from Captain John's, smoked sausage plate, some barbecued nachos. I do talk about food a lot. I didn't eat any of it, though. But got a 50% off sale right now. Some of the best-looking Filson, Barber, Pendleton, Schaefer, STS, Filson luggage, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. They got these cool Barber purses. Got it for Audrey, and she loves anything Barber makes. They've got it at Hewlett and Dunn. Saw Charles and his wife Laura and JM. Whole crew out there open Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You want to look great, get the best selection of men's and women's clothing, outdoor gear, go to Hewlett and Dunn. Open Monday through Saturday again, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Right down the street from Landers Ford, okay? All right, guys, before we leave, just kind of everybody give me a short tag out. Is this SEC season the best y'all can ever remember? I mean, that's a big question because at one time we had 10, then 12, then 14. Now we've got 16 teams. So we might have to compartmentalize this or something. But last year we heard how great it was, and it didn't necessarily pan out for the number of teams. But we did have Tennessee make the Elite Eight and Alabama the Final Four. Vince, I'll start with you.
I think it's the best ever for the Southeastern Conference. You mentioned the Big East earlier, and I think Rick Barnes has talked about the Big East and brought that up historically for one conference. I think there's a year or two you can point to for the Big East. So I'll save that. But for the Southeastern Conference, there's no doubt about it. And by the way, Nashville for the SEC tournament, it's always a great time and highly competitive and meaningful. Think about it this year. If you have 14 teams with stakes potentially for the NCAA tournament and being so good in all the great matchups, it's going to be amazing. There'll never have been, I think, a better SEC men's basketball tournament than what we're going to get in a couple weeks in Nashville.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I'm looking forward to it. Music Row Happy Hour with Buzz Brainerd. Shout out. Might take that in.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now that it is a tremendous league. And from 1 to 12, let's just say back in the day, that's what there was. I think it's as good as it's been during the 40 years I've been around. Wow. Obviously, Arkansas didn't get into the SEC until 1991. But here's the one thing I would say right now. I saw a game earlier this week. Michigan beat Nebraska 49-46. Michigan's much better offensively than that. Nebraska's better than offensively than that. But what happened in that game is Michigan found a way to win. And down the stretch here, those teams that are hanging on the bubble that can find a way to win no matter what are the ones that are going to get in. 49-46, 90-88. You got to do whatever you can at this time to get yourself in.
Yeah. Great ones. Coach, what do you think?
Well, I think the SEC, in terms of its depth and the balance of it, is the best it's ever been. I'm not sure some of the top teams aren't as good as some of the top teams, down the road that have been really good. But in terms of its depth, I think it's very good. The best it's ever been, actually, in my experience with it. And I think the SEC tournament is going to be great. I'm not too concerned about the top 10 or 11 teams, what they do. I think the race is going to be on for the bottom 4 or 5 and see where they fit in terms of getting an at-large bid. That's what I want to follow the next couple of weeks and in the SEC tournament.
I mean, I'm with you. I mean, this is awesome discussion, and I'll let y'all go by just saying that, man, I like the depth and balance. And I agree with you, Coach. I don't think that we have the best team or two ever in the SEC. Some of those Kentucky teams I've seen, and some Arkansas and Florida winning back to back. It's tough call, but it's compelling and it's must watch TV, man. Thank y'all so much for being on with us. We'll do it again next week. Appreciate it. All right, let me close out by saying,
all right, guys.
You bet. I'm gonna close out by saying something about our sponsor, another great one, Winter Timber Outdoors. They are located in Athens, Alabama, and they're open every day of the week. So you got to get geared up for the shooting sports. Turkey season starts in the next week in some of the southern states. All the camo gear, the ground blinds, the decoys, the box calls, the slate calls. You got to be ready. You want to kill a turkey? You got to be prepared. You got a game plan. All the ammunition that you need. Over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns available in the store in Athens, Alabama. A great staff. They know what they're doing. All the gears. They've got Sitka, duck camp. They've got Dixie decoys, hats, clothing, shirts, jackets. Prepare you for any outdoor experience. And they're growing, building a new store in Auburn, Alabama. Be opening this spring, like June opening. All throughout the Southeastern Conference footprint. That's where they're going to put their stores. Look for an announcement soon in the Memphis market, okay? So all of our sponsors, these QR codes we put up here, like My Town Roofing, Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, Arkansas, best place in America, training your hunting dogs. My friend Chris Aiken of 30 years, I've known Chris. They do the best job of anybody. And Corey Carter, Major Fusel, Chris Fiedler, My Town Roofing. They put the roof on the house at the Cherry Farm. They did it in a day and a half on a 7,000 square foot house with a crew of 25. It's amazing. I will recommend them. If you've got to have roof repair, replacements, call My Town Roofing. They're easy to work with, and they have a great team of people dedicated. For executive producer Brendan Martin, thank you so much for watching today. 5 p.m. Eastern on this channel with Ronnie Sanders and Doug Dean and I, AU Undercover, an hour of talking about the Tigers. We're going to be adding more of these SEC shows. So God bless you. Have a great day. See you later today.